Annexation means the forcible acquisition of territory by one state at the expense of another state. It is one of the principal modes of acquiring territory. Annexation presupposes the effective occupation of the territory in question and the clear intention to appropriate it permanently. It is strictly prohibited under international law and constitutes a violation of UN Charter. The prohibition of annexation constitutes a peremptory norm of general international law. That is, it represents a central pillar of the international legal order. Any changes in territory or a title as a result of a merger have no legal effect and constitute as the most serious violation of the international law. The annexation of the territory by a state carries legal consequences for the responsible state, and it creates binding and positive obligations for all third parties. In the case of Israel and Palestine, most prominent experts believe that Israel's annexation is a violation of international law. It is an acquiring territory by force. Israel gained control over the West Bank in 1967. Since then, they have confiscated Palestinian land, arrested and killed thousands of Palestinian civilians, destroyed their homes, and deprived them of their livelihood. Israel claims to be the owner and claims that the annexation is legal. Its position is that the West Bank did not belong to anyone, including not the Palestinians. So why doesn't Israel own it? Their arguments are outside the law. They argue that the annexation is a part of a long-term plan to resolve the conflict between Israel and Palestine, and that Jewish people have a strong connection to the land, that settlements at the Jordan Valley are important for defense. Israel had begun building settlement and relocating their civilians to occupied territory, which is a war crime under Geneva Convention and crimes of aggression under Article 8, bis 2b of the Rome Statute. As discussed in part 1 of the video, international law military occupation are temporary situations which cannot confer any transfer to title or sovereignty over the occupied territory to the occupying power, and it cannot deprive the population under occupation of the protection afforded under the 4th Geneva Convention. Nor does unilateral annexation affect the occupied status of the territory in question. As is the case of Jammu and Kashmir, the BJP-led Indian government imposed communication blackout, sent additional thousands of occupying forces to the Kashmir Valley, and then unilaterally abrogated the special status of the region. The Indian Parliament passed a bill which bifurcated the occupied territory into 2 union territories. The mechanisms adopted by Indian Parliament override its own constitution and numerous judgments passed on these subjects. On the other hand, India's new laws are designed to bring demographic change to Jammu and Kashmir, and under the new land laws, akin to the case of Israel-Palestine, India has started moving their civilians to live in the occupied territory. It is again a war crime under Geneva Convention and a crime of aggression under Article 8, bis 2b of the Rome Statute. Serious human rights violations have been committed by occupying forces, such as torture, murder, arbitrary detention. They are all violations of fundamental rights, which also amount to crimes against humanity. India, being party to the Twin Covenants, ICCPR, ICSCR, also showcase the blatant violations by Indian occupying forces in terms of curtailment of religious rights, economic development, freedom of communication, journalism, education, freedom of movement, along with the impositions of curfews, inflict of torture, and arbitrary detention. In addition, India violates international humanitarian law and is responsible for crimes against humanity, crimes of aggression, and war crimes, due to the use of deadly weapons such as pellet guns and cluster bombs, sexual harassment to women, illegal transfer of civilian population, inadequate response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the destruction of civilian property. The threat posed to the international legal order by acquisition of territory as a result of threat or use of force is reflected in the actions of third country and international organizations. In case of Kashmir, the realistic possibility of effective, proportionate third-party response could serve as a major deterrent against future instances of annexation. The international community should ensure that the Government of India respects and protects the fundamental rights of the people of Kashmir, and including the freedom of speech and expression. But unfortunately, the Kashmir conflict has not been given the same recognition as Israel-Palestine conflict, and for that reason, Indian government has the freedom to not comply with its international obligations in occupied Kashmir pursuant to United Nations Security Council resolution and other bilateral treaties and international covenants.